Good evening. Hope you've had a good week thus far and a good day thus far. I was telling Mike just a moment ago, if stuff will stop breaking around me, everything will be just fine, but sometimes you can't do anything about that. Our lesson tonight comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Over the years, one of my favorite things about some fight movies or war movies or what it may be is I enjoy the training scenes of movies such as that, the preparation scenes. With Rocky, for example, all the training scenes, if you've ever seen, you probably remember a lot of them. He's running through the snow, he's hitting bags, and the first one he's in a meat locker, whatever it may be. The Christian is always one who is doing work to become better each and every day. In fact, within that series of movies, a song was developed based upon the premise of working hard. And this is really where the lesson comes from this evening, what I call the eye of the tiger. Because I forget which one it was, I think it's the second one, that the song comes out, and it's based around the premise of being dedicated and never giving up. In fact, we find that song, and you can listen, whatever. It's one that is probably one of the most well-known workout songs that's out there. But the idea is to never give up. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, beginning there in verse 24, we look at the idea of dedication and the idea of running to win. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, looking there in verse 24, we have the idea of running to win when he says, "Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize, so run that ye may obtain." And Paul reminds us here that many run in a race, many compete for things, but only one person is going to win. But Christians run with determination, or should run with determination, and not as one who is running casually or half-heartedly. I remember when I was in school, there was a time, a long time ago, that I was involved in cross country. I know you can't tell, no one can. But I remember I would do our race or whatever it was, and I'd be up in the stands. I remember there was a long race where there were multiple parts, a person handing off the baton, whatever it may be, the relays. And for whatever reason, there's always someone on one team that wouldn't ever finish their lap. They would stop, and they would sit down, and they'd wait for the coach to come out and talk to them. I thought, what are you doing? And me personally thinking, I don't care how bad it hurt or how slow I went, I'm not sitting down on the track. I'm not doing that. I don't understand what's going on. As Christians, no matter how hard things get, we can't sit down either. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Run with endurance the race that is set before us." Philippians 3 and verse 14 tells us to press toward the prize of the upward call of God. The idea there of run with endurance and pressing toward the prize, the idea that you keep moving. We don't stop. We don't give up. We must be those who run to win. The Christian life is not about simply participating. It's about running with purpose and determination. We know what we're running towards, right? The Christian should know that why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we trying to be faithful to God? Because we know what's waiting for us if we stay the course, right? We know that heaven will one day be our home if we don't give up. We must also remember that discipline is necessary. Looking at verse 25 of 1 Corinthians chapter 9 says, "And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible." Athletes train with a strict discipline for an award. Christians work hard and strive for one that is eternal in nature. If it's eternal nature, shouldn't we be those who work harder than anyone else? When we say work harder, what do we mean by that? We mean we study. We mean we read. We mean we learn all we can about God. We be examples to those around us. When we fall short, we repent. We do all the things that are required of us as a servant of God, and we don't ever stop doing those things. We do it today, and we do it tomorrow, and we do it the next day, and so on. We don't ever stop. 1 Timothy 4, verses 7 and 8 tells us to exercise yourself toward godliness. We exercise ourselves toward godliness. You know, whether you're going to a Bible camp or you're listening to a podcast or you're in class with us on a Saturday or on a weeknight, all those things are geared toward one thing, to help exercise you toward godliness, to help you become a better servant of God. The book you have in your hand or on your tablet, whatever it may be, is there for the purpose of helping you become a better servant of God. Spiritual strength, however, does not happen by accident. It requires daily discipline in prayer, study, and obedience. It requires daily discipline. There are some things we do every single day, isn't there? We get up, we clean up, we get dressed, we do other things that are required of us. If we have to, we go out, we go to work. Being a Christian, there should be things we do every day as well. Praying, studying, spending time with God should be something we do every single day. We must also be those who stay focused on the goal. As you look at verse 26, he says, I therefore so run, not as unnecessarily, so I fight, not as one that beateth the air. Paul says he does not run aimlessly or fight like someone beating the air. His life had direction and purpose, and we must have the same mentality. We don't do things just to do things. We don't come to services just so we can sit here. We come so that we can grow. We come so that we can learn. We come so that we can learn more about God. Colossians 3 and verse 2 tells us to set your mind on things above. Hebrews 12:2 tells us looking into Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. We have focus. We do things for a reason. We study our Bibles for a reason. We read our Bibles for a reason. We teach classes for a reason. We partake in classes for a reason. Because we want to grow in faith. The eye of the tiger spiritually means keeping our eyes fixed on Christ and eternity and not an aimless life. We do things with purpose. We aim them towards God. And lastly, we must master ourselves. 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 27, he says, But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself shall be a castaway. Paul disciplined his body so that he would not become disqualified after preaching to others. We must be Christians who do the same thing. Sometimes we say we practice what we preach. We have to do that as well, right? If we tell others don't go out and drink and smoke, we better not go out and drink and smoke. We tell others to treat their wives like they ought to, we should do the same thing. We do what we say, we do the same thing. If we're not going to do what we say, then we shouldn't tell people to do certain things, should we? If we don't do it ourselves, then first we need to do it before we tell others to do it, right? Galatians chapter 5, 22 and 23 tells us that self-control is part of the fruit of the Spirit. We control ourselves. Proverbs 25, 28 says a person without self-control is like a city without walls. What does that mean? It means anything can happen. So if we don't control ourselves, we don't behave as a Christian ought, then it's open season, we say sometimes, right? Anything can happen. We could lose our faith in an instant. We can walk away from God and at the same time, out maybe knowing or unknowingly, pull others along and do the exact same thing. Victory in the Christian life often comes down to self-control and mastery over our own desires. Desires sometimes can be simple things that when we say, I'd rather do this today rather than do that. Or we could be something much more deeper than that. It could be something perverse that we're trying to overcome and control ourselves. Whatever it may be, we have to be those who are in control. The Christian must run to win. The Christian must have discipline, realize that discipline is necessary. The Christian must stay focused on the goal, and we must be masters of ourselves. That is, we always are in control, or we try to always be in control, right? And we think about the title, I know it's silly, but it's one of determination. That's what it's all about. The Christian life is not any different. It's one of determination. If that we become not so determined, we become not so gung-ho about things, as we say sometimes, whatever the phrase may be, what happens? We start getting weaker in the faith, right? If the athlete stops working out, what happens? They don't get faster, they don't get stronger, they get weaker, and they get slower, and they get cut from the team, right? As Christians, if we get weaker, we get less faithful to God as we should be, what happens? We don't go to heaven. And that way we are cut from the team, right? We want to make sure that doesn't happen. That we keep our eyes on God, put our faith in Him, and we always are those who are moving forward. This evening, as you think about these things, we can help you in any way. We're glad to assist you. That's going to be said and sing the song that's been selected.
I am resolved